Hey, what's up? How's it going? Good to see you. If you're if this stream is working, if you can hear me, and I don't know, everything's working. The code is being shown. My face is being shown, for better or worse. If you can see everything, if you can hear me, and everything seems all right, let me know. Just kind of do the comment thing. Let me know. Um, yeah, that's it. Let's see. I'm gonna open preview mode just to. Oh, back to live. Okay. Um, Never mind. I'm not gonna touch any of it. I'm just gonna assume that it's working. If it's not, then I'll just be talking here to myself, uh, which is totally fine. The same work gets done either way. Okay, so let's start. First, a couple things. Um, this is totally random. I don't know why I'm starting with this, but the last, I guess, 3 weeks of my life now, I've been taking an antidepressant. So I went to my doctor. I wasn't feeling super good, and they gave me this like routine, uh, like depression questionnaire. I guess they give it to a lot of people like post COVID, and I failed really bad. I think that like it's you score up, like the higher your score, like the worse you're doing. So I was like 16 of 20 was my score. So she was like, it's probably time for you to maybe consider medication. And so I've been taking that. The first 2 weeks were absolutely terrible. Like just terrible. It was like on top of just feeling bad, I now had insomnia, which and my muscles hurt from the medicine. Totally sucked. But by 2 weeks, it kind of cleared up, and I feel like let's see, I'm on this one. It's called like bupropion, or I don't know. It's Wellbutrin, but generic. And I feel like it's helped with my focus, which has been really nice. I guess that's a nice side effect of it. Um, anyway, just thought I'd share. It's been a pretty good change. So see how it goes. I'm only 3 weeks in. The first 2 weeks are terrible, and this week is pretty all right. So anyway, cool. Stream's working. Awesome. David Fabian, thanks so much for being here. Glad you're here. Hello as well. I can do this. Oh, there you are. Hello. Hi. Um, and then Sean, hey, thanks so much. Thanks for verifying that we're working. I am glad to hear it, and I'm glad that you're here. So that's kind of like personal update. I'm gonna continue to just I guess update on that kind of stuff if it's helpful to people. And yes, it's funny. There's this really weird artifact over here. I'm not really sure why why this part of the background showing, because I have like a full screen. Oh no, never mind. That's just on my side. Never mind. Don't worry about me. Yeah, Sean, thank you so much. Yeah. I was a little nervous about taking it. My my whole like growing up, we are very kind of like hippie, I guess, and like a lot of like homeopathic stuff. Very resistant to like pharmaceutical medication, so it was kind of like a weird like having to get over that type of thing. But I'm glad that I have, and so I'm trying to do some other things to prop up my well-being and see if maybe after a few months I can kind of wean off of it again. It's just something that comes and goes. There's a lot going on lately. Anyway, enough of that. I'm going to tell you one other silly thing that's happening right now. So I have so this is a keyboard. I have long really liked split keyboards. So one of my favorite programming keyboards of all time is the Kinesis Advantage. And they just came out with the Kinesis Ergo or something like that. It's super popular on Twitter right now. Everyone's buying it. It's like a $500 keyboard. Totally nuts. Split. It has, it was the first keyboard that I ever used that had thumb clusters. So Ergodox have these thumb clusters as well. one of the coolest things is that you can use your thumb to backspace on a lot of these keyboards. You can use it for whatever, but like the primary position is this backspace. One of my favorite features of these split thumb cluster keyboards. Um, anyway, I've always liked split keyboards because, I find that on a regular keyboard I get kind of hunched over a little bit, but then on a split keyboard you can kind of, get your shoulders back, you can breathe a little bit easier. So I've always wanted to be able to use just a regular Apple keyboard because when I'm on the laptop, using a laptop, like on plane, traveling, all that kind of stuff, I get to retain all of my muscle memory. Everything's always in the same place. And so what I've been doing right now, Apple finally fixed whatever was needed to get this to work, but I have two keyboards, two Apple keyboards. So I have one for my right hand and this one for my left hand. And it's been awesome. And it totally works that you can like just, shift and do, all the stuff works now. It didn't used to work. And I'm so happy about it. So thrilled about it. It looks absolutely stupid that I'm using these two keyboards. I wish I had a top down right now so you could see what's happening. It's weird. Anyway, that's it. If you're doing anything weird with your setup right now, let me know. I'd love to know. And yeah, so let's get into the meat of what we're doing today. Today, if I can find my cursor, today, what I thought we would do is kind of attack this React patterns site. So this is something that I made, probably 5 or 6 years ago as I was learning some of these patterns in React. And it was really helpful for me to learn them, to have to be able to communicate them in a way that was just kind of a sentence or two and then a code snippet. Now, over the years, a lot of this changed. Certain things have become common that weren't before. So like, ES15, like I don't think anybody on the planet programs in like just regular JavaScript, or I guess JavaScript that was regular at the time. I think most of the browsers have all of these features now, so it's like kind of hilarious to even reference them. And then all of this stuff is in a time like before hooks. So I thought it was time to just kind of sit down and kind of reevaluate some of this stuff. And I don't know, if you're interested, I'd love to get your feedback as we go through this on, what of these patterns are still relevant, what we should keep in. Maybe we could move some of them to a different resource, whatever makes sense to you. And yeah, if this is your first time seeing it, maybe you'll learn something about the way that React and JavaScript were back in the old days, the days of old, 5 whole years ago. Anyway, that's what we're doing today. What I have here is so I have this page open up on the left. This is just a Chrome browser. If I open that up, you can see that's Chrome. This is running locally on port 8080, and I am using, this whole page is built with 11t. 11t is one of my favorite frameworks. Let's see. That did not, yep, 11t.dev. Really great framework. It is, the core of it is JavaScript, but it really focuses on core web technologies more than pretty much any other framework I've ever used. Really nice, as minimal as you need, but then there's some really cool starters too. One of my favorite things about this, unlike a lot of the JavaScript frameworks today, is that I can just paste in regular HTML into my templates and it works. Unlike a lot of frameworks where you have to like do some like weird stuff because like all the page loads like could be a page, like a HTML render, or they could be JavaScript like just loading in asynchronously. You have to do these weird things to hook up your analytics too. So kind of weird. And I hate doing it. And it's one page. Like I don't want to screw around with that. So love that I can just drop in HTML. And I think I even have analytics for this public. So if you go to reactpatterns.com, analytics. Yeah, I do. Cool. Yeah, so you can see, there's still like a decent amount of people, checking this site out every month, from the last like handful of years. Obviously, it hasn't been updated, so I'm misinforming people, which is sad. But yeah, this is if you haven't seen these, this is Fathom Analytics. I think if you sign up from this link, it helps me out. I get some like free analytics juice. I don't know. Anyway, I can't recommend them enough. I really like them. I got off of Google Analytics. Just there's all that like you have to accept cookies now and all that stuff. And Fathom does analytics in a way that you don't have to have the whole like GDPR cookie stuff. So big fan of what they're doing. A little more virtuous. I like giving less information to Google as well. Some messages. Let's see. Hugh, what's up? Homie, good to see you. Real talk though. Is using thumb clusters or saying thumb clusters the actual appeal? I think it is part of it. Thumb cluster is a is a really fun thing to say. Yeah, thumb cluster. I might start using it as like a soft expletive for streams and YouTube videos. Jacob, hey, good to see you. And glad that you're here. Thanks for being here. Okay, cool. So we got this doing this thing. Let's get into it. Let's chit chat more, doing the thing. Unless you all want to chit chat, then you can just say something in there, and we'll I'll be easily derailed if you want to talk about literally anything else. I think, let's see, do I have a notes file in here? No. Oftentimes I will just like create a notes file. So notes.md. What's up, Goober? Nice. Yeah, so thanks, Brent. So yeah, let's see if I have Twitter open. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, oops. I can't change it. Let's see. Twitter.com/chantastic. So I've changed my profile to Absolute Goober, who's written some genuinely helpful articles. This is something that someone commented. Oh, burgers. That was fun yesterday. Someone made a comment on Dev2 that just said that they recommended my stuff on Dev2. I haven't written there much, but I've written a few things. Absolute Goober has written some genuinely helpful articles. Brent and I are choosing to see Goober as a term of endearment. So if you get called a Goober, that's from us. From us, it's a nice thing. It's a good thing. What's up, Arthur? Always a pleasure to see you. Good to see you today. Arthur has a really great YouTube series on grid. I learned a ton. And if you're trying to figure out CSS grid, go check out Arthur's channel. Really good playlist there. Okay, cool. Okay, so we got everything going. Okay, so let's kind of evaluate some of the things. We can go section by section here. Got the table of contents, translations. People have asked me about different translations, and I'm so lazy about doing this. I felt like I needed to like have a strategy. I should just link out to them like I'm doing for this Chinese one. I was afraid of moments like this though, where it was like, oh, I'm gonna update it, and now what do I do? Now there's this like totally different translation of it that I don't control. Who knows? I don't have an answer for that. Would love to know if you have an answer for that. Okay, so as I've been like thinking about this, one thing that I'm curious about is if this, like these aren't super patterns. These are just like APIs, this first handful of sections. And so I'm wondering if like this kind of stuff should just be a separate thing altogether. And I can link to it like, hey, if you just want the React basics in the same form, here's this other page, but this is all just patterns. If so, like what would go into a like React basics page? I I'm thinking for sure this, component section, this idea of expressions, props, let's see, default props. Yeah, I think all that stuff. Actually, this I think is kind of not really something that anybody uses anymore now that, I think it's kind of been replaced largely by, I can never remember the term for it, but it's like default values when destructuring. I think that's the idea. I can look that up. If you know, hit me up. Yeah, another domain name for the collection. Yeah, I think I actually might already own React Basics. I'm not sure. I have more than once. This is a sad story. More than once I've gone to register a domain that I think is funny and found out that I already had it, which I guess is a good confirmation. So default props, that's not really a thing anymore. So destructuring props. Like this is interesting because this is, so let's see what we have here. Destructuring assignment is a JavaScript feature. It was that, okay. Think of it like the opposite of literal assignment. So this is actually kind of helpful information, but I don't necessarily think that people care about this. If you're coming to a React patterns page, does this matter anymore? Now that it's so commonplace. Yeah, I don't know. Syntax for collecting remaining props. Okay. Yeah, like that feels like this isn't exactly a React pattern. It's just JavaScript. I don't know. I feel like that could probably go. I like to just like jump into patterns, like skip all the prelude. Okay, JSX spread attributes. Now this is a JavaScript API, and I think that it's interesting. Oh my gosh, I hate. So this component has to go. I absolutely hate this component. I think that this component is the ruined a whole like generation of JavaScript developers. I actually talk about this in a talk on, let's see, youtube.com. I don't know if it's on my channel. So, check out my latest thumbnail. That's pretty good, I think. It's pretty good. Just like fake drilling an add-on. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so what was it? Most expensive component. Chan. Okay, yeah. So was it the world's most expensive React component? So I have this talk in a couple of forums that I gave, I guess last year. At a couple of conference, and it talks about why the greet component or greeting component is like just the worst. Specifically because we're not using children here for composition, and children in React is a superpower. It's like one of the greatest APIs. Like when you compare it to the previous kind of iteration of component libraries, like Angular at the time and Ember at the time, none of them had something that borrowed so deeply from like the HTML model. And so the fact that we start people off by bypassing children as a compositional tool is criminal, absolutely criminal. And look, I'm just as guilty as friggin' everybody else. The problem is me. Okay, so this we gotta almost said a bad word there. We gotta get out of this whole thing. So we're gonna call this JSX spread attributes. Gotta get out of great component hell. Okay, so that's a big thing that has to go. I think this is still this is still kind of a good example. So avoid forwarding non-DOM props. Like all this is really important. I don't know the best way to cover all that, but okay, that's good. So non-DOM props are important to cover. Okay. What's up? Let's see. Yeah, I would say yes. We're onboarding a dev from Vue recently, and destructuring is heavily used in React land. Even if it's plain JS, not everyone is aware of it. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know of. I think it still probably makes sense in basics, or maybe even like JS. Another thing that I was hoping to make a resource for was like maybe JS for React devs type thing. In which case, maybe this is a really good example of something that would go in there. Let's see, what else we got? Let's see, if you want to go for the current pattern, I'm going to use T-word. There should be a small section with a bit of TypeScript. Oh, man. TypeScript. You're not wrong, though. You're not wrong. So this is kind of like a real, ooh, I gotta fix these headers. Okay, number 2, not number 1. Okay, yeah, so like big questions. TypeScript? I want to say no. I want to say no. Like, if you were coming to this, like, what's your preferred MO? Like, do you have a TypeScript version of this document? So like, like React patterns / TypeScript or something like that, where you can see all of the stuff in TypeScript with types. Some of these patterns, like the as prop, is like literally untypable. It is so hard to type. And I mean, it's not like impossible to type it if that's the only thing that's happening in that component, but so many, like, there's other complications in most components that make it kind of weird. Yeah. Okay. I concede that it would be valuable to people. Okay, real quick. TypeScript. I'm a fan of TypeScript. I am a fan of codifying intent into code. Big fan of that. I was actually talking with Hugh. I don't know, Hugh, if you're still here, but Hugh and I were talking the other day. Hugh is a long-term friend of mine. Hugh Fort commented earlier. Long-term friend of mine. We go way back. We were talking about TypeScript. And I have a problem with type purity. I think that's the thing, is like I've spent so much time in dynamic languages that I like feeling a program out, being able to kind of, bend things while I'm learning what my program is supposed to do, what the structures are inside of it, and then over time kind of calcifying the strongest parts of it, right? And that's what I think is so beautiful about TypeScript. TypeScript is great because it allows you to incrementally add types to code, but then also have the flexibility when you don't know what the structures in your application are yet, have that flexibility to like figure it out and then like calcify it later. So I don't know, like I have an internal tension about TypeScript because I like it, I think it's valuable, but the best feature is that you don't have to use it for everything, and that I feel like the industry, our field, our expertise have not quite gotten to the pragmatic part of using TypeScript that I really appreciate. Um, so I don't know. I feel like I run the risk of like getting TypeScript purists jumping down my throat about stuff that I don't care about. Rant over. Let's see. Okay, TypeScript. Yeah. So when is version 2? So David asked, when's version 2 going to be released? I don't know. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of just pushing whatever we get done today up. I don't have to answer to anybody for this. So yeah, whatever we get pushed today will be good. And then I'll probably just push these notes up as well. And so I'll have a base point of like what we're gonna do next. Probably do it on a couple streams in the future. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, or a JS to TS slider. Yep, possibility. To 7 weeks of work. Feel like I could get a brief mention. Hello, Michelle. By the way, good to see you. Always a pleasure. I feel like I can get a brief mention as alternatives to the old-timey prop types pattern. Old-timey, yes. I am old-timer right here. Proud badge. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So does Execute Program have React stuff? I know that you've gone through the program and I've seen uh, just the TypeScripty stuff, but wasn't sure if there's like kind of like a React section. But yeah, I'd happily send people over to Execute Program. Um, I'll actually open that up right now. If you have not seen Execute Program TypeScript right there, Execute Program. This was created by one of my just all-time favorite developers, Gary Bernhardt, Destroy All Software, created this thing, really killer program. Gary Bernhardt has, let's see, if you go to Destroy All, that was probably a link down there. So if you go to destroyallsoftware.com, yeah, okay, cool. And then I think it's WAT. No, maybe it's Talks WAT. Yes, WAT. This, if you haven't seen this, this is the greatest tech talk of all time. And oh man, 12 years old, crazy. Or sorry, 10 years old. That's nuts. Wow. Amazing. Yeah, greatest tech talk of all time. I'm gonna link it, and look. Don't watch me. Watch this talk. That's how good it is. I'm gonna send you somewhere else right now. Okay, cool. Let's see. So yeah. Execute program. Let's see. So Jacob says, I think that if you're using TypeScript already, you'll probably be able to convert them on your own. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. A lot of these examples are pretty minimal. But then again, like asprop is a fairly complicated thing, so we could maybe link out to other resources as well. But I think adding TypeScript is out of scope for what this exists to accomplish, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that that's probably fair. This is very like kind of like low level resource of like React patterns. And so yeah, maybe we do add like a TS thing that just kind of yeah. Or, maybe these things get a little bit more evolved. This front page is, continues to be the way that it has been all this time, where it's just these things. And then maybe there's on each section, there's like a link to this pattern, and it has a more exhaustive resource, including type definitions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, execute program. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So TypeScript stuff instead of, got it. Yeah, just sending out for the TypeScript stuff. Awesome. And thanks for the likes, everybody. That's so kind of you. Appreciate it. Making me feel good. Okay, so sorry, that might have been loud there. Okay, so back at it. So JSX spread attributes. We decided this is important. The example sucks though, because this is a bad component. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm just going to call it a bad component. It's a bad pattern. Um, so let's see. Yeah. People do love making TypeScript pull requests, so there we go. I reactivate this repo, and then maybe the hounds come out. The TypeScript hounds. Merge destructured props with other values. That is a mouthful. There's got to be a better way to say that. Very much open to a more nicer way of saying that. I mean, it's accurate. Merge destructured props with other values. Is it good? No, not really. Okay, so what do we have here? So what are we trying to say? So components are abstractions. Good abstractions allow for extension. That could probably use some qualification, maybe a link. So that would be nice if that had like a... See, this is something that I feel a little bit insecure about at times. I'm going to be real honest with you. So link to solid. Okay, so solid, the let's see, design patterns. So solid programming principles. Find the Wikipedia article. I mean, there's so many articles, but solid is a list of kind of like thinking about how modules of code should be architected to work well with each other. And it has all of these like kind of weird things like, single responsibility, easy to understand, open closed, which is, was it open to extension, closed to modification? That's really the principle that I'm talking about here as being a good thing. It seems like a link here would be important because otherwise it's just me saying, that it's important. And, this is not a resource on, or it's not an authority on that type of, on like just programming in general. So linking out to that might be nice. This is the principle that I'm talking about. Open closed is a part of this solid acronym. This solid, and this is the part that's kind of like insecure for me. Like solid is like is the most transformative kind of thinking change in my programming career. I was fortunate enough to be able to find this pretty early on. Unfortunately, let's see. So if we go back to the solid page, Robert C. Martin is not like a great actor in the programming space. And I don't mean like they're not very good at acting. I mean like kind of causing problems and is just not someone that makes people feel safe in programming circles. So I really hate I really hate there's a lot of conflict, internal conflict in me here because I think that this is good. This is not my favorite. I don't know what to do about that, but I do think that maybe if we kind of avoid solid as an acronym and just kind of go to open close principles, at least that gets us a little bit further away from that. And this is just talking about a principle, which I don't think he even made these principles. He just came up with the acronym. So maybe that's what it is. We just don't, just link to the actual principles that other people made. So I think that's probably good. So we have the open closed link, which I think would be a good fit there. Let's see. Extend components with additional props. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, extend components with additional props. That's a good one. So we'll do like alt title idea. Wait, did I just copy and paste that and then start typing it? Nope, I did not, but I'm gonna do that. Oh, I can't copy there. Wow, now I deleted it, and oh man. Components with additional props. Okay. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Oops. Okay, don't have a markdown format. Oh. Yeah, Uncle Bob. I wish, I wish I wish things were different because this is, I mean, Solid is like literally the best. But I do have to remember, like, he was just the guy who came up with the acronym. Other people made the, the actual terminology and whatnot. So there you go. Agreed. Good to call out. Yeah, good principles from bad actors. Yeah, it's really tough, because I think that, you know, we see this a lot, right? As just in the world, like Harry Potter was like a really big part of, you know, it all came out like from like high school to like adulthood. I really love those movies. They're a big part of my upbringing. I don't like love the kind of like platform that J.K. Rowling is, constantly on right now. And so like, I don't know, that kind of sucks too. You're like always like kind of stuck sometimes. It's like this is a big part of like the person that I am, but like, I've diverged from the person who created it, and life's complicated. Life's messy. Life's messy. Let's see. Michelle, I do think that, however, that this concept is basically impossible to avoid in dev. So while finding better links is best, might be impossible sometimes. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that this, knowing that I can link directly to these and they have different authors attached to the ideas actually makes me feel a lot better about that. And typically I end up referring to these concepts in isolation anyway. So this is actually great. And if I've learned one thing today, it's that I can kind of more freely link to the more specific things, which is awesome. And I'm going to start adopting that a little bit more. Okay, cool. So merge the structured props. Okay, I think this example is actually pretty good. So consider this component that uses a class attribute for style. Okay, so this is interesting because it's actually class name. Well, class attribute, but then the prop is okay. That might be a little confusing if you don't already know this about React. Which actually brings me to another another domain that I own, which is React is hard. Yeah, and so like that is a place that I want to kind of put stuff like class versus class name, and like I don't know, other stuff, but that would be a good fit to like link out from here because that's confusing. So maybe React is hard, class name. Okay, cool. Link, maybe that would be good there. Okay, so let's see. This works great until we try to extend it with another class. So my button, okay. In this class, delete button replaces button. Order matters for JSX spread attributes. The props class name. Okay, this is a lot. I feel like this whole thing could probably be broken down. Like up to this point, it's well, I guess some of them are kind of long. Oh wait, did I skip sections? Oh yeah, I skipped destructuring prop. Oh right, because yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, because like this feels like rest props could be its own thing. It's always tough when there's a pattern around something that doesn't have a hard name to it. I don't know, whatever. Okay, so what are we looking at here? So I think that we could break this down even a little bit more. So we can change the order, but now, Yeah, so this is actually kind of exposing like a whole, like a set of challenges. And I think that it might be nice to have some more um, like output, like more output demonstrations here. Like so if I do this and I put the props before this versus after it, like what the output looks like, etc. Those like before and after examples could be kind of cool. Like this versus that examples. Before versus after. Oops. Okay, so that could be kind of neat. Let's see, what time are we at? Okay, so it's 12:36. We could probably, okay, so I'm gonna kind of not, man, there's so much to do. This is why I always get stuck. Conditional rendering. That section's probably like pretty good still. Let's see, children types. So, okay, these are different. It's funny because these are different sections, but they're related. Like it's almost like this is a category, and these are like I was trying really hard to keep this flat or something. Providing an array as children is very okay, because we go from string to. Oh no. Okay, I see. I'm saying these are children types. We can do strings and array. There's a lot more than that, so I'm not sure why I didn't include those. Yeah, okay. What are these other sections? Array as children. Okay, so it just shows the array function as children. Render props. That's a big section. So children pass through. I don't so you might create a component designed to apply context and render it to children. So some context provider. Wow, this just looks so weird. Seeing a class component. Good gracious. Wow. Okay, return. So get child. Wow, I honestly don't even know I don't know what this does. Maybe we should start with that. Uh, wow, wild. Okay, wow. This is something that I knew what it did a long time ago, and now I don't. Cool. Let's see. So proxy components. This is not a name that really ever caught traction. I don't think that there was an official name for this way of thinking. I mean, it's basically just composing things, if I remember correctly. Yeah, which is like a style component is a version of a proxy component, and then style components. This is something that I was a big fan of, was like composing by like this. So having a primary button render a button with a special prop, as opposed to like just bloating a button with a bunch of options. I don't know. It's something that I was on for a long time, but now everything is a friggin' box component. Like the whole industry went the opposite direction, where you just shove freaking everything into a single component, and then just if you ever have to change that component, your whole site breaks. I hate it. I will always hate it. Would love a correction there. Yeah, I honestly, I wish I knew. It's so funny. I feel like if I really remembered all of the stuff that was in here, I would have felt compelled to change this much earlier, because I just feel bad thinking about people coming to this resource now and being like, I don't know what the hell any of this means. Yeah. What is this? Event switch. Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. Yeah, this was something that this also kind of never really caught on either. but it was something that I think I really liked, and Sebastian I will butcher his last name, but Mark Bogue, I think, something along those lines, um, it, had tweeted about several times about being a really nice way to um, handle events in React without having to do like a bunch of event handlers, which I thought was kind of cool. Um, yeah, pretty cool. Layout components. Yeah, also an interesting idea. Okay, cool stuff. Container components. This is kind of largely regarded as not a great practice anymore, um, because we have tools for composing things better. Uh, I think it's still probably worth keeping, and then kind of talking about the kind of better compositional tools that we have available to us. So, yep, that's good. See, proxy components are the dry of React. Maybe this setup works great when combined with Tailwind. I've found. Yeah, I would agree. Actually, yeah, it's really nice to like. And again, this goes back to the open closed principle. I think that this is one of the most transformative principles in Solid. You know, single responsibility is something that we kind of um, is a little bit easier to grasp because it's like, does it do one thing? But you have there's it raises another question, right? Which is like, so box. You know, all of these component libraries have a box now, and you can look at it and say, yes, it does one thing. It is a box. However, it doesn't really obey the whole like open to extension, closed to modification philosophy, which is that, you know, you should build a low level building block and then build abstractions on top of it, and then kind of like come back to the layer of abstraction that you need and then build maybe alternative and parallel abstractions on top of that. And so I think it's a really good kind of like second thing to kind of balance. You're like, oh, well, it does one thing. And it's like, yeah, but it does like every single aspect of that one thing. And we kind of, you know, depend on it to, you know, change or, you know, whatever. Just want to see what time it is. And got to check my calendar real quick. Because I have this gnawing feeling like that I have something at 2. And I need to make sure. I do not. Great. Okay, cool. We're good to go. So yes, yeah, I think Tailwind is actually really nice for this because you can kind of just put the core things in that component, and then, you know, you feed more classes into it from a wrapper component that's a little bit more specialized. Yeah, good patterns overall. So that's actually probably something that's, I think, emerging here is like the concept of like open closed, single responsibility. I mean, again, I think I also have like a solid React domain. I have a literal problem, a real problem. Ridiculous. So maybe it goes there. Maybe I put my whole thoughts about solid and all of these organizational, you know, module principles into that one thing there. Let's see. Okay, Michelle says, I see props and rest as frequent conventions. It might be good to mention these and then standardize on rest props in your doc for added clarity. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, so kind of like, I'm gonna put this as like a general like standardize on rest versus rest props. Yeah, so this is this is definitely a tick that I have around writing documentation and and whatnot is, so when I was learning code, I found that I was kind of like in this tension where sometimes if I saw repeated words too often that were variables, I would assume that they were some kind of like constant. And so it kind of made me a little bit reticent to uh, have examples that you like, repeated examples that use the same terms. I think that sometimes I can take this too far and then just have it be like a total ball of mud. I do think that there are some like strategies that have worked for me in the time since that are like a little bit more of like a colloquial name, colloquial name. Lord knows. So like something that would never be like all of the rest of the DOM props. Something like that. It's a little bit more easier, a little easier when you have something like a component name, because like my is usually a prefix that kind of works in there, but this is kind of a balance that I'm working through sometimes. But I agree that having a standard would be nicer than not having a standard in this case. And then linking out to like, well, this is JavaScript, and this is what you need to know in order to use this feature, would be helpful, I think. I totally agree. Let's see. I think the container pattern was common enough. Jacob says that it was common enough that it's worth including so that people understand it when they come across it, because they likely will. Yeah, I agree. And I think that honestly, a lot of traffic to this is from posts about the container components. So maybe have a note about how this has fallen out of fashion. Link to preferred alternatives. I mean, this is clearly an area where hooks have transformed the way that we write this type of code. So just moving to hooks is probably a big thing here. Okay, cool. This is also kind of interesting, right? Because we have like higher order components, and honestly, to be honest, I didn't do a very good job of actually showing all of the ways in which you can use higher order components, because a lot of them will have they will what's the term? They'll curry on kind of like an argument, like a props mapper on the back of it. So I didn't even cover that case, but yeah, something that's, again, like this is still a pattern that we see in a lot of libraries, so worth having here as kind of like an artifact of the way a lot of code still is today. Okay, state hoisting. This is still an important pattern, but I'm probably gonna not do this anymore. So okay, so I have a question for for anyone and everyone who is here in this space. Do you think that it's valuable to keep this version of the document around? So it exists in Git, not ideally because I moved it into kind of like a mono repo of a bunch of my sites. So like, let's GitHub, hub.com, Chantastic, sites, I think it is. I did it just because I was like tired of like jumping around repos, but like it lives in here, which is not ideal because like finding the kind of like parsing the individual history of this would be a little bit of a pain compared to like it just being in its own repo. That's a little bit of a bummer. So I can't easily say, oh, hey, like old versions are here. So should I make a kind of like classic like, reactpatterns.com/classic, and you get exactly what this is today. And then we kind of, have migrated the rest of it along the way. Thoughts? Thoughts? What would you like to see? I mean, it's been online enough that I don't know. I mean, all of the links. There's no pages for this. It's just fragment links. So links aren't necessarily going to be broken per se. It would be nice if I maybe had some kind of element of headers at the bottom that retained some of those fragments so people could still find their way around. If I decided to change the headers or whatnot. Anyway, yeah. Does classic make sense? That's the big question I have. Should we do a classic? Yeah. Okay, cool. You know what? I'm just gonna kind of pick one and go. So I'm gonna start. Okay, so I wasn't gonna share it here. JSX attributes. Okay, so this is totally bogus for me. I hate this. So we're gonna start there, and then I think. Not quite used to these terminals, so okay. So React patterns. Okay, cool. So we can kind of okay. So what does this look like? Is it just a index file? Yeah, index.markdown. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take the whole thing, and we're not gonna change this because this may stay as an original in its original state. So let's make a, I don't know. Let's call it beta. I mean, it's going to be alpha is what it's going to be. Oh, interesting. What? Look at this. There's a whole page that I don't even remember being here. What is this? Okay, I don't have it linked. Okay, what's happening here? What's happening? I'm so excited. This is like a gift to myself. Oh, cool. What's this? I didn't even know this was here. Okay, React patterns, hooks, preview, draft. Wow. When was this written? Oh shoot, I don't have GitLens in here right now. I could probably enable it. Extensions, GitLens. Man, you get busy, things happen. No, wait, I have it. Okay, enable. Okay, do I have to restart? No. Okay, so where's this file? Okay, so when did I write this? Nope, that's hooks. 12 months ago. 12 months ago. Crazy. What did I say? Separate 11 to ignore and move basic content. Okay, crazy. Okay. Look at that. Super fun. Little surprises for myself. Okay, so what do we got? React patterns, hooks, mixins for functional components. Hooks let you do mixins for functional components. That's a funny thing to say. I like it though. If you're here, did you ever write mixins for React components? It was a fun and not great thing to do. Yeah, with great power came great responsibility that none of us were willing to, be responsible for. Okay, cool. So hooks. Okay, cool. Let's be light on detail. Okay, cool. So prerequisite. Oh, interesting. So this is really kind of like a migration type of guide for all this stuff. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. This is very fascinating. I don't remember any of this. Glad it's here. Um, yeah, lies. Lies. Okay, so we're gonna go back here and we're gonna go to JSX. Okay, so JSX spread attributes. Where's the... Okay. This is a section that we'll work on. And then I'm gonna go to beta. Okay, we have that now. And then we'll go to JSX spread attributes. Okay, so what is it that we want to say? How can we make this, but without a troubling component that bypasses the beauty of children? Beauty of children. Okay, so we're gonna have a JSX example. I'll start by just copying this and kind of seeing where we want to change this thing. So I understand why this example is nice because it shows you really concisely how props work. Custom props, like props that you create and name. It's unfortunate because, like, you know, controlling children is bad. So let me just kind of change this. I mean, ultimately, like, what's a let's see. Okay, I'm gonna write a couple components. Okay, so this is, why is my formatter not working? Maybe I've not set it up for Markdown yet. Okay, so so this is an option for a component. So let's see. Oh shoot, I apologize. There's new comments I missed. I was stuck in a scroll. Tangential question. Which font does your editor use? Good question. I have forgotten. Oh yeah, so I installed Iasevka. Yeah. Now the reason that I did that is because I was doing more tutorials online, and I was actually hoping to do some vertically oriented content for social. And as I was going through some of the stuff, I was just realizing that some of it was just too wide, and I kept having to like kind of shift the window back and forth. Didn't love that, so I used I found a narrow font, Iasevka. Let's see, Iasevka typeface. And I've been enjoying it. It's a little bit weird visually to get used to at first. Now I don't really notice it, but I do find it very helpful in trying to pack more code into a tighter space. So that's it. Iasevka is the one that I'm using. Chris, hello. Welcome. Glad you're here. And then also, Mixins never made any sense, but they worked somehow. Yes, I agree. They were not a great compositional model, but they did work. They worked great. They worked great. Yeah, there's something really rough. I don't know exactly how this is different, right? Because like you can compose code where it's like, you know, because something that I like is like you have a small module of code and then you have something that kind of, you know, wraps that small module of code, and then you have like another thing that wraps that, another thing that wraps that. Mix-ins are strange because it's like you're injecting your code with something else, right? And so like there's something that could literally infect every method in your component without you really realizing it, which is very strange. It's a super strange thing because, you know, it's never clear really how to like interact with it. Like, are you overriding it? How do you call methods from the other thing intentionally? I think Ruby, the programming language, has a decent model for mixins. I think it's still mixins are still discouraged, but typically, at least in Rails, there's a way that you can kind of call those mix-in, like, I don't know, methods from those mix-ins intentionally. It's weird. It is truly weird. Mix-ins almost they just don't scale well, I think is what happens. Yeah, it felt like context before context. Context, however, is like the greatest dependency injection system ever invented. I freaking love context in React. Huge fan. Okay, cool. All right, back to this. Okay, so I want to write a couple of alternatives that I'm used to writing these days, which is, so we have, JSX. We have, whoops, sorry. So this would be props. This would be spreading props. There's kind of an interesting other version of stuff that I've been using at times, which is like this. So we don't even take props, we're just going to take children. I'm not sure what I should call these, but so, and then also if you use a React fragment on this, you can still, was it still pass keys, I think? So I need to just actually destructure children. Oh, that does use a fragment, but I think you have to actually use React fragment specifically. If you want to spread out the props. And I think the only real prop that you can spread out here is the key for keeping track of what's there. But this is kind of an interesting, I don't know, example, I guess. So I should kind of have that other more simplified example too, where all we're doing is just taking the children. Now, this is something that I've actually grown fond of for things that are going to run some kind of like manipulation on the children. I'm trying to remember exactly where I used this before. Oh yeah, that's right. It was, so I'd used it for internationalization. So we have something like, const t from, was it I18 next.use translation is use translation is a function that you, or a hook they would use from I18 next, which is in a localization library, and then you could run a translation on the children, assuming that the children were like just text, or ended up being, it would have to be a key, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing that you can do if you want to use a component for that. And in this case specifically, you actually need to use a component for that because you have to like opt into this hook. So I think that's actually like a really interesting type of pattern. You do end up with a problem, which is like, what happens if like I'm dictating on some dictating what type children are, right? So I'm really like, so if you pass in a like an array of React elements, like you're not going to get the benefit of this. It's going to fail, and so I probably need to have some kind of safeguard in place, or like a pattern, right? And so I don't know. I have to look into this, but this was an example that I thought was kind of interesting, where I need to use a hook, and I might pass in other things. I don't want to control the element, so I'm just going to make a component that is effectively just a text node. Interesting problems there. All right, Chris, I've always thought that fragment was transformed into nothing and thus allowed array returns. What would the props get passed to? So yeah, let's see. So if we look at React fragment, you can't pass DOM props to it. It's just the key that gets applied. And I think that that's just kind of like a private thing for React anyway, so you wouldn't actually see that in the DOM. So fragments declared with the explicit React fragment syntax may have keys. A use case for this is mapping collection to an array of fragments, for example, to create a description list. So this is honestly like, this is the best example of this. I'm glad that they have this in here, where you need some kind of root element that's going to, have these two elements inside of it. You have to make this this separation here, but these elements need to be nested directly inside of the DOM description list. And so you need this to disappear, but you also need the benefit of React being able to know how to performantly, which is not a word, update this list with new values. So you're correct. All of the props do disappear, except for key, which is just kind of a signal to React. Okay, fragments exist in the virtual DOM, but not in the physical DOM as far as my understanding goes. I've only ever seen key used with them. Yep, that's right. But the other prop, all the other props would be lost. Yep, you are correct. And so like so like if we wanted to be like, very honest about this, we'd probably just pull off key. Right, so just ignore the rest of the props because they're not going to get transformed anyway. And so we'll do key is key. Key is key. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we have, so this is actually kind of the same example now, except it uses a hook. And so I'd still love to see, I'm trying to think if there's any value in something where it's like this, where we don't do that. It's always going to need some kind of transformation to be useful. But then also, if it's not a hook, then it's not, it could just be a function, right? Like this should just be like you wouldn't do this at all, right? You would just say like return div and then my function transformer is a more fun word, transformer of whatever whatever children I had. Right, like this becomes a really like kind of awkward abstraction around your need to do that. Um, that said, I do know a lot of people who hate seeing all this and would love to abstract it into a component. That's not my style, personally. um, I'd like to see things in line, because now it's like I don't have to think about whatever the component's doing. It's not invisible to me anymore. Like I know this is a div. I can just add my, class name, my IDs, my whatever I want to put in here. It all just goes directly on the thing. I can see it all here in this one line of code instead of hiding it behind something else, and then having to guess on whether or not they've mapped the props appropriately, spread them out on the component, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. I don't think you need React fragment. Yes, no, I agree. Yeah. So I don't need React fragment if I'm just doing this. Airy. Did I say that right? Airy. But I do need it if I'm going to pass the key. So that's the only thing. So I'm pretty sure you have to use it. I don't know unless something changed, but I think like the docs at least say that if you've used this syntax explicitly, then you have access to the key. That's been my experience up to this point. That could have changed maybe with a more recent version of the JSX transformer. We'll see. Okay, cool. Cool. There's 8 of us here right now. I appreciate you. I'm grateful that you're here. Thank you for your interest in this project. Yeah, stoked that you're here. Very happy to hear your feedback if you have thoughts on how we can make this thing better. It has languished for a very long time as I've focused on other things. And so again, would love your feedback. So what does that mean? So I wrote a lot of these examples. What are we fleshing out here? Spread attributes. So we're kind of getting back to spread attributes. And I think one of the things that I'm concerned about, what is it that I want to say? Because if I just want to tell people how to use spread attributes, I still have to come up with an example, and I need that example to be pretty intelligible, right? I think something that I'm worried about is having some type of copy and paste example, what is it? Great. Okay. Like this, right? This is kind of like a canonical first React component, and it's bad. This is. And it's bad because it obliterates children and totally teaches people how to use React in a way that's not composable and has dead ends instead of through streets. And that is, I think, something that it's a problem that I don't want to contribute to anymore, because I think a lot of people do copy and paste code. That's a good thing. I think that we're all just trying to get our work done. And when I think about if I had to be productive in something like Go or Rust and make something, I'm not gonna have time to friggin' sit there and actually figure out all the nuances of why the example code is not good in practice. So the example code should be reasonable, I think, even if it's a little less convenient, or it doesn't read as well. So, man, just so soapboxy today. That is definitely something that has I think changed with this medication that I'm taking is that I kind of go on rants a lot more, which I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not. Who knows? Maybe it just is what it is, right? Let's see. Chris, the order of the spread. Let's see. The order of the spread. It always is always something to note. E.g., if you spread before or after hard-coded props, it will always allow for overrides. Yes. So that's actually something that we is covered in. Which section is this? Does not destructuring props. Oh shoot, I had it. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I lost my place because I have all these examples showing up in this page now, which I was not ready to look at. Yeah, so we cover that a little bit in this merge destructured props with other values, which is a terrible name. Michelle gave us a better one, which I like. Merge destructured props with other values. Okay, but yeah, this is where we kind of go into that thing where it's like, oh, okay, well, if you put them at the end, they're going to override anything on the left side, and if you put them, before, then they're going to get overridden with hard-coded values, and so we have to, anything that we extract from our props, we're going to have to have some kind of intentionality around merging them. I get a lot of. I have had a number of issues posted about this example not being robust enough. This is a really tricky thing because I think that it's important to realize that effectively all it's doing is putting spaces in between things. But I agree, there are libraries that solve this in a much more robust way, and using one of those is important. And so yeah, I don't know. This is probably not enough. I guess I call out class names. And does anyone even use CLSX anymore? I feel like it was supposed to be the new hotness for a while, and class names just continues to dominate. But maybe not. Let's see. So let's see, what do class names have? So okay, so we got 10 million weekly downloads, and this is 8 million weekly downloads. Okay, so they're actually pretty close, which is funny. Oh, it's funny. I didn't realize that this was Luke Edwards. That's super cool. Over at Cloudflare right now? Or, shoot, where are you at, Luke? Dang it. Yeah, anyway, Luke is cool. Did not realize that that was Luke. It's always kind of funny in the open source world when you've seen someone's work, but you don't know it's them until years later you meet them, and then you're like, oh, I didn't realize that you did that thing. Super cool. Like the CEO of Vercel made Socket.io. Like that blew my mind when I found that out. Crazy. Let's see. JavaScript developers live and breathe rants. Well, I got them, and they're coming out more and more. Let's see. Oh, class name method you stole from Tailwind. Yeah. Yep, totally. They're all very simple. I mean, they don't do a lot, but they do cover a number of edge cases that, a simple function like this function doesn't. And I think that there are still edge cases that this one doesn't either. So at the end of the day, it's not. I think I like knowing that I can write the function that does the thing that I'm intending it to do, and having it all be here instead of, if I put a link to an npm module on there, ain't nobody knows what that thing does. And so I don't know. I still kind of like this balance of things. I think as long as I kind of share the problem enough. Okay, so what are we talking about here, man? It's amazing to me. And this is probably why I've made no progress on this. Is that it's been almost an hour and a half, and I have a lot of thoughts, but not a lot of work to show for it. But I do appreciate hanging out with you all and just kind of talking about how this could be better. That's really good stuff. Okay, let's get back to the section that we were on, which was JSX spread attributes. Okay, so we have a bunch of examples now. Okay, so if we're talking about JSX spread attributes, we really do need to be spreading attributes, and none of these examples spread attributes. So that is a clear distinction that these examples are not really valuable for this type of thing. However, I think that we should be kind of upfront about the disadvantages of having a what is it, like hard coding an element in here, and it's challenging to be upfront about that without talking about alternatives, which we see down here, and alternatives like a polymorphic as prop, which is not, people in the TypeScript community hate, or they hate typing at least. So what are some of the areas of concern that this overlaps with? Let's see. So I never really know how to make notes to myself in a markdown file. Test. Oh, cool. Okay, HTML comment is probably fine. Okay, so let's see. A lot of thoughts, but not a lot of work to show for it. The life of a programmer. True. 100% true. Live coding and standing for an hour. X 1,000 respect points. Oh, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. My shoulders are starting to hurt though. Like usually I kind of like switch it up, try to switch it up like every half hour or so. That's a lie. I don't actually do that, but I know that's like my goal is to try and switch it up every half hour. But yeah, can't do that with the setup because, the whole thing's on a tripod. My head would just it would just be head there. Oh shoot. Oh no. I closed the comments. Shoot. Okay, give me 1 second. I gotta find the window for comments, or else this is gonna be superset comments and reactions. Okay, cool, found it. That was faster than I thought it was gonna be. Okay, so what do we like about this example? It's brief. Oh, thanks for the likes. Thanks for the likes. Y'all are awesome. Appreciate you. It's brief. It's concise. It showcases, so with an example, it would showcase how, let's see. It would showcase that children come along with those. Showcase all props. So like including, the ones that we might not expect. So class name, children, ID, key, all of those would come along with it. So with an example, that would be a really great demonstration of that. Things that I don't love about it. So it hard codes more likes. Oh, thank you. I get a little like bloop, bloop, bubble effect with thumbs every time something comes over there, and I'm just like. Okay, so what does it do? So it hard codes hard codes the element, and then kind of falling out of that. Falling out of that, we have to kind of like forced into talking about is it Paul as prop, which like, can I just say real quick, like I hate, I hate that this became like what people refer to it as. I don't know, maybe it's accurate. I don't necessarily think that it's accurate. It sure sounds douchey though. Like, it just sounds so inflated. I friggin' hate when we do that kind of stuff. It is what it is, but I don't love it. I mean, I don't know. They're just words, right? You know, polymorphic is just a word, but it seems like, you know, as prop was just fine. I mean, I guess it kind of sounds like ass prop, but whatever. Does polymorphic save it from sounding like ass? Not really. Okay, so it forces us to talk about the polymorphic as prop. I guess, let's see. So it wouldn't necessarily, right? Okay, so it forces us to talk about an as prop, right? So I guess this is maybe where the distinction comes from. So that would be like any kind of string element, like, you know, div, span, I, like whatever you wanted to wrap this thing in. And then that kind of leads into like a polymorphic as prop, which is going to be some type of something that would allow you to do like fancy div, my component, etc., etc. And like this is just a lot. Like, it's just a lot, and it's hard to type. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily make it not sound like something else. So yeah, I think that these are the problems with going down this direction. Let's see. So what are you saying, Michelle? So also, is this example improved if we just illuminated how it helps users of e.g. common components to be able to pass props down a down to a DOM element? Sorry, maybe I missed that mentioned earlier. Yeah, so that's a good. It's a good point. I think that it can. And I think that this is actually a really interesting starting point, right? Because the code is extremely simple. You know, you like, I guess like, okay, so maybe I'll ask the question of like, you know, like, what are we getting with this code? So like, you know, what we're getting with this code is that we're getting some type, like the benefit of doing this at all is that we get, so a component. And so like, what are some of the things that you actually get from having a component? I guess that would be reusability, would be one of them. I think access to hooks would be another one of them. I think probably in this early stage, this is probably the bigger reason that people do that. I'm gonna also add to this like isolation, like predictability. So the question is like, what is a really, like, if all we're using a component for is to give a name to something, what then is like a rock solid example of like a component where this is valuable? I think in the past I've done something like This one always gets a little tricky, right? Because like I have liked button as an example because you can specify was it type equals button, right? However, this I think in recent years is less of a big deal than it used to be. Like I think that a lot of people are like, it doesn't even matter, like don't even do that anymore. That was just like for IE that you had to be that explicit all the time. And so like the reasoning for that kind of goes away a little bit. But that's the best example that I can think of, like offhand, without introducing things like classes and whatnot. Uh, yeah, Chris, gotta drop. Below the stream, looking forward to seeing more awesome work. Awesome. Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate you, and thank you for all your feedback in here. I appreciate it. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day or evening, kind of wherever it is in time zone. So, yeah. Cool. And hopefully, we'll get a better React patterns up here pretty soon. Okay, so what about if your component were a blue button using specific hex and props passed down, lets the user specify on change, etc., without explicitly defining it? Yeah, I think that could be, let's see. So if we do something like that, so like, let's build up some possible examples. It's funny because like this, when I wrote the original version of this, I mean, again, several years ago, wrote the original version of this. I was kind of amazed at how much time that it took me, but like now going through this again, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like it's so hard to like actually boil everything down to like the most critical pieces without misdirecting somebody. And I mean, look at what happened. I'm still misdirecting people. So I just have more data points to draw from now. Let's see. Okay. So, button is a good example. And so then from that we could do like a some form of like styled button. I think the disadvantage there would just be that we're kind of like forced into a corner on styling. And so we kind of have to go down this, and this is something that I find a little bit taxing sometimes. So like I was on a stream one time and we were just building up an example. We had a very brief amount of time. I think it was like 10 minutes to showcase something that we wanted to talk about. And it was this very like casino themed kind of event. And I had a little bit of time to build in CSS, or I wanted to build a poker table, right? And so it's just like this green felt board, and then like I throw a couple cards in a second, and I used CSS grid to be able to place all of the cards. It was super cool. But then to keep all of the examples in one file, keep it tight because we had such a limited amount of time and I didn't want to like be jumping all over the place. I did it in inline styles in React. And it was so funny to me because at the end of it, like everybody, even though like people organizing it were like, oh yeah, I don't like inline styles. Oh, it's so like weird to see stuff in like inline styles and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, it's not like, I'm not advocating for doing it this way. It just allowed us to stay in the code instead of having to jump all over the place and like get there faster. So I don't know, people see stuff and they get angry. All right, I'll probably go to, let's see, it's I'll probably go to the top of the hour with this, and then kind of get back to getting work done. So probably got like another 20-25 minutes in me before kind of conking out. I only got 3 hours of sleep last night, so I'm also a little bit loopy. Just 3 hours of sleep and coffee. 3 hours of sleep and coffee. It's so hard. I mean, like I feel like after 35, finding sleep has just been really hard. Really hard. Another story altogether. Okay, so what do we have? So it kind of forces us onto this path with styling that I'm not a huge fan of. You know, maybe we just kind of take the hit on some type of default. Uh, default like type button. Even though it's not super relevant. I think that's an option. I think just because it's a clear. So this is what I like about it is that if someone came in and they copy and pasted this component just like it is, they're not worse off. I don't think anyone would necessarily copy and paste this component exactly as it is, but it is something that I am concerned about, which is like, can someone copy and paste this and not be sent on a dark path? And I think that the answer for this one is yes, because you know, buttons do need a type, and by default they are relative to their context, which is confusing to people. I should just say is confusing. It's a confusing thing to have as a default. So someone's not worse off. And what happens is that if they copy and paste it exactly like this, really there's no harm, no foul, right? Because if they put a type on this button, well then it's going to override whatever we had here anyway. So I feel like all right about this, just as a means of like not being bad, and not being too opinionated. So I don't know, maybe. Big maybe. But like this does give us an example of props. So like how does this fit in to let's see. Okay, so how does this fit into our goals? So we want to talk about structuring props. We now have this button, and then from this button, what are some of the next steps that we can take? So some of the next steps, fading fast. Okay, so some of the next steps from here is that we can demonstrate. Kind of like DOM props. We can demo children being part of that. What else can we do? I guess key is an interesting part of that as well. And then I guess, I don't know if this is important, but we also have an error for non-DOM props. I think that is probably worth noting at this. Is it worth noting at this point? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Error for non-DOM props. What else? Oh, and then it also kind of leads us into what is it? Kind of what do we call this? Like spread position, right? So currently overrides, and then that is something that we actually cover in this section, right? So just spread attributes. These are all the examples. What did I have before? Okay, so we had rest props. And then yes, we kind of talk about this. It'd be great to get name out of that. And then yeah, so all of this stuff would still work. Okay, we do talk about non-dom props. Okay, so that would be every time I say that, I think about four non-blondes. Is that the four non-blondes? Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know the words, but I know the melody. Um, hey, what's up, Rook? Good to see ya. Man, I'm falling asleep right now. Uh, good to see you. Wait, where are you? Where are you? There you are. Hey, always a pleasure to see you. Glad you're here. Um, okay, so I think that's all good stuff. Yep. Um, thumbnail game is strong. Thank you. Thank you. Trying my best. Being a middle-aged man making thumbnail images is quite degrading, I think, but keeping it fun. It's fun. Okay, cool. So so that leads us into spread attributes, and then kind of like overrides, all that stuff. Nice, nice. The timing. That's good. That's good timing. Thank you for the call out there. That would have gone right past me in my sleep deprived state right now. Um, let's see. I wish I could play that song without, I don't know, having the stream taken down. Um, okay. I would just ask Siri to do it right now, but I can't. Can't do it. I'd like to party. It'd be fun to party with you all. So we have, I think we have all those things. All the concerns are still there. I think that this does a better example of like showing that question that I would have is like, does it make sense at this point? Like, how far? So question, how far do we take it? Take it. So like how far being like, do we talk about oops do we take it to like why you would destructure children? That was the French spelling. Why you destructure children? Why? Let's see. What are some like? I think fragments become a big part of this conversation. This definitely leads into a number of kind of like tangentially related topics that we had kind of built some examples for just a second ago that I can't find. Maybe they were below. Yes, they are below. Yeah, like how hooks play into this, kind of like why components at all and not functions. Not functions. I think those are the big ones. Yep, fragments, and again, kind of like WTF even is a key. Any key. Yeah. Yeah, and then it's all kind of like it all kind of like quickly becomes like spaghetti, right? Because everything's like totally interrelated into everything else. That's the beauty of HTML, obviously, is you just kind of link around, and that's great. But it's so hard to find a friggin' foothold in this thing that doesn't have you writing other sections first. It's kind of like an all or nothing type of proposition. Oh, Skya, thank you so much. Genius! Wow, feeling good right now. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying that. Oh man, I'm blushing. Genius. Okay. I need to go to sleep. Okay, so where are we at? So we have a foothold. Not a clear direction on where we want to take this, but I do think that this is a really like important pillar. Is like, how do we start talking about props? And I think that this is a beautiful way to do that because, you know, so like what's the example before this? You would have like a non-prop thing. So what does a non-prop thing look like? I mean, there's no way that you could write. I mean, I guess you could have a useful React component. So I guess the question here is like, what could we make that would be useful that isn't dynamic in any way? Which is kind of it's interesting because I don't think that this I have a syntax error. Where is that? Function non-prop example. Do I just need to put stuff in here? Just slash. There we go. Okay. So okay. So there is kind of an example of this. Like it's interesting because I think that components in their first iteration really were just about like encapsulating like pieces of reused code. So you know, so maybe you had like a footer, and this had whatever, some links. So you have some links in there. And this is just kind of the same everywhere. And then maybe you have some kind of I wouldn't even know how to write this if I tried, but like some like current date type of, what would that be? Like new date dot now. That is going to be like a date string or something like an epoch date time or something like that. It would just be like a bunch of random numbers. Is there like a year? There's no auto in my whatever. Okay. Totally derailing myself. Okay, so is that new date dot now? Man, I totally did this. Okay, I don't know how to write JavaScript. I could do it in Ruby, which is weird. Like, why is Ruby the only language I know how to write a date in? Oh, it's like, sorry, just randomness. So my dad grew up in a number of countries. So he was born in Vietnam, and then his family, when he was very young, like preschool, like fled Vietnam during the Vietnam War and moved to Brazil. So most of like his most comfortable language is Portuguese, which is the language native tongue of Brazil. But because he learned like his numbers in Vietnam during the time that Vietnam was being colonized by France, he does all of his numbers in French, or did all of his numbers in French, which I always found like just hysterical. That said, I feel that pain right now because it's like I could totally do it. I could totally print today's date, today's year in Ruby, even though I don't remember anything about Ruby. I just remember how I could put a date. But can't do it in JavaScript, the programming language that I use every day of my life for the last 12 to 15 years. Who knows? Brains are weird things. Brains are weird things. Okay. So non-prop example, I think that something like this could be so I think something like this could be like an important example for React basics, where we're saying like what even is a component? Like if you strip all of the rest of these like compositional concepts out and you think about a component as a reusable chunk of web UI, can't inject any opinions into it whatsoever. There is value for that, and I think that there's like value in having it be some kind of, having that be a starting point, and kind of like a step into like, okay, well, what are props, like, and then what is the natural state? Like if I was going to just recreate this whole thing, but as a React component, what would I do? And that would just be the same thing, right? Like you take an element, like a div, and you spread out all the props. The disadvantages, though, is that now you are like hard coding to an element. So I think that there's like an isolated chunk there that's useful. So add props to create like new elements, right, is kind of like the superpower that we have with React and props, and like to get a default implementation, you would take and spread props. And spread props holistically. Holistically, like as a whole, take and spread all props. Yeah, you would take and spread all the props. And so you get here, and then the disadvantage is being locked to an element, which leads into as prop, polymorphic as prop, etc., which is a new section. Okay, cool. So I feel like this is kind of taking shape a little bit. Let's see. So speaking of Ruby, Jacob says, I was trying to find a solution to a CSS issue I was having with the Ruby and RT tags the other day, and all search results were about Ruby language instead. Yeah, nice. I forget. So I know what the RT tag does. What does the Ruby tag do again? Is that just, does that allow you to like write Ruby syntax in the browser? And if so, that's such a funny thing that we would have a Ruby tag. It can't be for that, right? Or is it? Weird. Curious minds need to know. Okay, so if I was to, so we've just been like kicking this ball around for a really long time. So if I were to make an outline for this type of like content, what would the steps be? So the steps would be no component with no props, component with props, let's see, importance of particular props. So these are going to be like, children and key, I think are probably, yeah, children and key. But then we'd also have kind of like, so we would, from there, we would have, we would go into like kind of a problem solving type of thing, which would be, okay, so if we're trying to solve the problem of fixed element, we would have as prop, and then if it needed to be a dynamic component, we would do poly as prop. And then the problem with poly as prop is TypeScript. TypeScripters hate it. And then an alternative to that is to make make fewer components, fewer unnecessary components. Which would lead to like what is a necessary component? This is also circular. What is so like? And then like what are necessary components? Uh, like so something that you like hooks make a component necessary. Kind of like I don't know. This isn't good language, but calcified like implementation or like hardened implementation. Uh, so that's a valuable thing. Um, kind of an example of this is like something you can test uh, in isolation. Um, so yeah, hooks, citation. Um, yeah, I think those are two pretty good reasons, maybe the reasons that you would actually take on the risk of creating these new elements. Um, yeah. Okay. Cool. It feels pretty good. I feel like that's like a workable outline. I think some of these will be jumping off points into other sections, but I think that this is a totally workable outline for this, like for where we're at right now. And I think that this is probably a good foothold into like leading into kind of the rest of the content. So, for example, with Japanese, you would do something like this. Uh, oh, interesting. To render the blank text on top of the blank text. Interesting. That is fascinating. Thanks for showing me that. I've never actually seen that before. Wild. Let's see. A non-complex footer might be just a little copyright or something with a year in your name. Yeah. I like that a lot. I think um, I think that I think you're totally right about like the copyright and your name. I think that is a very visceral example that people could understand having it, and then also like understand it's interesting because it also isolates some type of functionality that you don't want to come back and change, or if you do come back and change, you want to make sure that it's isolated and like understand that it's reused across places, right? So that footer component would theoretically be in a lot of layouts, and the implementation for actually gathering that date and presenting that date would be kind of inside of it, but none of it requires props. So it's all like isolated. So yeah, I really do think I agree with you. That is a really good example. So a component with no props. This would be footer with copyright. Whoops. Nope, did that wrong. There we go. Cool. Okay, cool. So that's in. And why? Because it kind of is an isolated implementation, has code or has like embedded JavaScript, would be reasonably spelling is atrocious, would reasonably be used in multiple layouts. Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Yep, feels good. Okay, Michelle, you gotta jump. But thanks for having this space and hope you get some rest. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate your feedback. You're always a very thoughtful person, and yeah, I just enjoy spending time with you. So thank you for being here. Thanks, for hanging out in Discord with me. It's always great. And actually, speaking of Discord, discord.gg/lunchdev is where a bunch of really cool, awesome people hang out all the time. And I'm just gonna, post a link in there because, oh shoot, it's 2 o'clock. We hit the hour. I got so excited about what we were doing here that I just lost I lost track of how tired I was. So yeah, that's a good sign off. Posted the link to the Lunch Dip Discord. if you're not already in there, join us. We have like the coolest people in there, really thoughtful people, really, I like to say that it's the, most creative, curious, and kind group on the internet. Very thoughtful people, big fans of everybody in there. So if you're looking for people who are into web development but have nuanced perspectives on things and are able to have a conversation about nuanced things in a nuanced way, a lot of great people there. So yeah, that's it. I think I'm probably going to sign off too. It's been about 2 hours and I'm kind of beat. So I think we made a lot of progress on finding our first step into doing React patterns again. So really excited about that. Hopefully this will actually hold this time. I've been trying to do streams. I think Thursday may be the time that I do it, around this time. But if you have thoughts on that, you can, let me know. Comments, reactions, whatever. Join Discord. Tell me when you want me to stream. I'd love to find a regular time and start doing this more often. Tell me what you'd like to see us do, because I think, this is kind of fun, but also it could be fun to just, talk about stuff that I know nothing about, like, algorithms or something. I don't know anything about that. So that's it. Y'all are awesome. Appreciate you being here, stopping in, hanging out, helping me make this resource better for our JavaScript development community. I'll see you next time. Oh, there we go. You're awesome. Stay awesome. Bye.